Okay, so we're going to move right into the presentation here. This is Abby once again, so I want to thank you for joining us again. And it looks like we have a good mixture of people in with us today. Some of you are starting for the first time with telemedicine, and others of you are just curious about getting into it. So you want to ask yourself a few questions. Really, an important exercise to do is think about the things that you may be doing already that could be constituted as telemedicine. Do you call clients on the phone? Have you ever relayed results remotely or talked to colleagues on the phone about your clients? If you've answered yes to any of those things, you're already participating in some sort of telemedicine, and you could possibly be getting reimbursed for that. So if you're thinking about taking your practice online, or you still have questions about how to make your online practice successful, this presentation is going to give you an overview of things to consider and tips for implementation of your plan. What we're going to go over today are the 5 steps in devising and executing a plan on bringing telemedicine into your practice. The first of these steps is going to be identifying the problem or use case. This is where you're going to take a good look at your practice and identify or really examine your goals and yourself and what you want to get out of telemedicine. Then you're going to be devising a strategy on how to integrate telemedicine offering into your practice, followed by implementing the strategy you've devised. And then you're going to execute, and that includes making your first test call and subsequent calls. And then maybe the most important step in the whole process is evaluating and repeating the process so that you are continuously improving your offering. So this is the program planning cycle, and this is a good guide to go by anytime you're going to be implementing a new piece of a new strategy into your practice. And for instance, let's say Tom is a licensed clinical professional counselor, and he is going to assess his practice for telemedicine. He's going to ask himself some questions about how he'd like to integrate telemedicine, what his desired outcomes are going to be, and then he's going to plan a strategy on how to get to those desired outcomes. Once he's planned out a strategy and chosen a telemedicine software to help him do that, he's going to implement that, and that's going to include the onboarding process and training his staff, making his clients aware that he's offering telemedicine, and then finally he's going to execute that plan, making his first calls and really getting into the meat of video conferencing and telemedicine in general. And then he's going to go back and evaluate that entire process to see how he did, is this a good return on his investment, and how he can improve in the future to make his telemedicine practice grow. So we're going to start right off with the first step here. That's the assessment step. And the first step in that is your practice assessment. Then you're going to decide on desired outcomes, and finally examine the regulatory and reimbursement landscapes in your state. Your practice assessment is really good to start with a series of questions. And these questions are what we found work best or in finding out exactly what the provider wants to get out of telemedicine and how to devise a strategy around that. The most important question is, can these services be delivered for your clients? Many of you are probably mental health providers, which is really the perfect use case for remote care. Moving into the second question here is, am I experiencing a demand for remote care? And maybe right now your answer is no, but you got to ask yourself, do I have a client base that is familiar with FaceTime or Skype? Maybe if you start offering those telemedicine services, you'll see that demand increase. Then finally, can I identify one or more clients who would benefit from telemedicine? I bet if you think right now, you could think of at least one person who always cancels at the last minute or has a really difficult time getting into the office due to mobility issues. Is telemedicine a good fit for those people? I bet it is, and I bet you could leverage that in your practice. Then moving on, is telemedicine, are you experiencing missed revenue opportunities? So we talked about those no-shows or last-minute cancellations. What percentage of your sessions were canceled or no-shows that you could have prevented through telemedicine? If Does everyone here know the missed revenue opportunity in their practice? And that's a good exercise to do. If you don't know what that is, you should look into that and see what percentage of your practice could be salvaged through telemedicine. And then finally, is telemedicine a supplement or an alternative to my in-person practice? Harrison, what do you find people typically use telemedicine for, as a supplement or an alternative?
Sure. So I think that that's a very circumstantial question, and it's going to differ for each provider that comes in the door. You know, historically, I've spoken with providers that want to use telemedicine as needed for clients that are perhaps transitioning out of care and have moved away, or really just when it's necessary. Others are really optimistic about using telemedicine and want to use it as a supplement, and they've identified maybe 1 to 5 of their clients they see regularly that would be a good fit for telemedicine, and expand slowly as they get more comfortable with the technology and the concept. And then I think the most aggressive case that we see is those providers that maybe experienced with telemedicine, they understand it, it's borne fruit for them and for their practice, and they're interested in heavy utilization and making a complete online office offering as an alternative to in-person treatment. So there's a smattering, but I think the takeaway from this slide is that everyone on this call could answer yes to one or multiple of these questions, and the benefits to telemedicine are quite obvious, but it is up to you to figure out exactly what your desired outcome is for telemedicine. And so, you know, you can see here, you know, some of the common outcomes that providers tell us that they want to see telemedicine deliver for them. And for each of you, you have your own agenda or own benefits that you're seeking out of it. And it really, whether you're going to use this as a supplement or as needed or as a complete alternative, that's going to be decided based on your desired outcome. So if you want to, you know, work from home 100% of the time, then it looks like it's going to be an alternative. Maybe you just want to increase convenience or access for some of your client population, and that could be more of a supplemental use case. So that's where we ask our providers to start. Ask yourself that question first and foremost, and that's going to be the baseline for developing this initiative within your practice.
And then once you've kind of examined what your practice looks like and what telemedicine will look like in your practice and what your desired outcomes are, you have to look, after that introspective review, you want to do an external review of the regulatory landscape and, of course, the reimbursement landscape in your state. And this is a really good graphic that kind of gives you an idea of just how different each state can be as far as the regulations surrounding telemedicine. There are currently 47 different definitions for telemedicine, and every state is going to be different, but there are some overarching rules of thumb. The things to consider about your state-by-state regulatory environment is each governing board could have different or conflicting policies, or maybe no policy at all. From informed consent to first session requirements, you'll want to look into those things. For instance, the state of California requires a specific informed consent only for telemedicine. Other states may recommend that you take a distance counseling course prior to practicing telemedicine. The rule of thumb is, if you're planning on conducting clinical services across state lines, you should be licensed in the state where the patient resides. And some states will even expedite a licensure application for telemedicine if you don't already have one. And then there are proposed legislations for interstate licensure compacts, and it looks like things will be improving in the future as far as that goes. But for right now, you will have to do some digging and really examine what your state requires and how you can achieve a telemedicine practice in the state in which you're licensed. Harrison, do you have anything to add to that?
No, yeah, I think this is kind of a derivative of the fact that this is an emerging market in concept, and we're moving from early adopter into the mainstream, and there's a significant amount of interest for telemedicine. It makes sense, people understand it, the outcomes are there. The regulation around it by state is evolving to meet that demand. And so it's lagging a little bit behind, but I will say that in the last 5 years since we've worked in this space, there's been a significant amount of improvement, going from 11 to 32 states in just a matter of a couple of years that require reimbursement for telemedicine and parity. Has just been so significant. So these laws are ever changing. Every state is different, and we try to act and position ourselves as an educative, consultative resource for providers like yourself that have questions around the regulatory environment and the reimbursement environment. And so we have a slide here just to gently outline the reimbursement spectrum. Abby will get into some of the details there, but we do want to offer we have a one-page overview for each state that if you are interested in, we can happily supply you with, that can at least give you a starting point as you start to navigate those waters.
Yeah, absolutely. We really want to act as a resource to all of our providers, and that information is something that's important to you. As Harrison said, we've really come a long way, and this graphic here is a testament to that. I mean, you can see in blue here all the states that have a telemedicine parity law, which requires private payers to reimburse for telemedicine sessions as if they were an in-person session. But there's still a ways to go. And a question that you're going to have to ask yourself is, does that even affect me? Maybe you're a provider that's only billing your clients out of pocket, and none of this matters for you as far as reimbursement goes. But if it does, then you'll want to know a few things. For example, a GT modifier is something that you would add to your CPT codes in the billing process that will indicate that the services were furnished via telemedicine. You'll have to know that and what your CPT codes are prior to billing. And it's really not just as simple as whether or not parity exists in your state. Some states require different things, certain conditions or specifications that must be met in order for you to bill for services to private payers. For instance, the originating site. Where was the patient at when the services were delivered? Some places require that the patient be in a facility instead of their home. If you're someone who's looking to provide services to patients in the home, then you'll want to consider that. And also, what license types are reimbursed? From state to state, that varies. Maybe in one state, a professional counselor isn't reimbursable, and in another state, they are. So you'll have to really examine that and find out what works for you. And maybe you have a practice where you're seeing a mixture of people, out of pocket and insurance billing, and maybe you only see your out-of-pocket cases via telemedicine. It's really up to you and your state and your practice to decide how this is going to work for you. Harrison, do you have anything else to add to reimbursement before we move on?
No, not outside of just the standards. So again, you just need to check. It's important to be prudent here. Make sure that you don't skip over things. Recommend contacting your state licensure board, see if they have a policy on telemedicine. Any insurances that you're paneled with, call them up and see what their policy is, and that'll give you a good indication before you submit that first claim.
All right. Yeah, so now we've done our introspective look at our practice. We've decided what it is that we want to achieve with telemedicine, and also looked at the landscape around us. And the next step to move into is the planning stage here. And in planning, you're going to talk about practice integration, creating an ROI strategy, and vetting a telemedicine software, as well as establishing a timeline for your implementation and execution phases. So in practice integration, Jonathan Linkus, the CEO of the ATA, really says the hurdle for most providers is integrating telemedicine into their practice. So there's a lot of considerations here, and once you've identified what your desired outcomes are, this becomes a little bit easier. So you'll want to look at things like case mix. What types of patients or what types of visits am I going to see via telemedicine? Do I want to see consultations or only my follow-ups? You'll also have to decide how much time you're going to dedicate to your online sessions and your workflow. Perhaps you want to involve your staff in a facilitated check-in for less tech-savvy clients. And then you'll want to give your clients guidelines. They're used to you operating in a brick and mortar office, or maybe they're used to your telemedicine services, but you're expanding, and you'll want to educate them about what it is that you expect them to be using the services for. Also, system requirements and software are huge. Is your office set up to handle a telemedicine practice? Do you have good internet speeds? Are you on dial-up right now? If you're not using high-speed internet, you might want to think about that. These are all important things to consider, and when you ask yourself these specific questions, it's really going to give you a much better outline of what your plan looks like and how to develop your practice into something that will be successful for you. And of course, and probably most importantly, you're going to want to look at your ROI strategy. And I'm going to kind of pass this over to Harrison here. He's pretty astute with the ROI here, so go ahead and take it away.
Well, you know, I always encourage providers that I speak with when they're starting a telemedicine initiative and they're wondering, how is this going to impact my practice? Is this going to be worth it for me? Where's my break-even point? And really what it comes down to is just a simple exercise in economics and just following a very simple equation. You know, what's the gain from the investment minus the cost divided by the cost of the investment, and you get an ROI percentage. And that's something that you can set a target or threshold for that, you know, you can strive or aim for, and then again, as we'll get into later, evaluate that and find ways to improve it over time. But, you know, just to take an example, if we're talking about supplemental use of telemedicine and I'm talking to a provider that says, well, I have 20% of my caseload, you know, are either cancellations or no-shows from week to week, and I also have a couple clients that have since moved away and have a hard time making it to the office, and I want to use telemedicine to see them. I'm expecting to have, let's just say, 5 sessions a month via telemedicine, and I charge $100 for each session. That's a gain from session and revenue that I would not have otherwise had or had scheduled of $500. And just for the sake of simplicity, let's consider the cost of the investment, and that's the software and your time, is $100. And then divide that by the cost of the investment. So that's a 400% ROI. And then you want to put a side-by-side next to that of an actual dollar amount. What do I expect to budget and forecast from an additional revenue stream perspective? And so, you know, we try to work with you to set those expectations and understand that financial side of your practice and how telemedicine could affect that. But, you know, typically, you know, we want to see you get at least 200 to 300% ROI every time with every client that we work with, and that's something that I think is very easy and feasible to obtain, especially or even for new providers that are just starting out. So,
okay, so you have at this point examined how you're going to integrate telemedicine in your practice, and you've developed a strategy for your investment, and now it's time to choose a software, and this might be one of the biggest steps that you're going to partake in. And there's some things you're going to ask yourself and things that you're going to ask your vendor. When you first start off, you're going to want to ask yourself, what parts of my workflow do I want telemedicine to solve? And it seems like very simple, but it can get a little complicated when you start thinking about the workflow processes that you have in place and how you're going to integrate that software into the workflow. Some softwares are going to be a good fit for you, and others may not be, specifically because of that, and you'll want to keep those things in mind. You also want to think about, what do I want versus need in a solution, and a good exercise is to ask yourself, what is critical to your success? Are you basing your decisions off of things that you need or things that you'd like to have? And perhaps once you get a little bit further into your practice, you can have, or you can onboard some of those like-to-have pieces, but you really want to make sure that when you initially choose the software, you're getting everything that you actually need. And then finally, think about, will my needs change over time? Is this software going to be able to grow with me, or Am I going to be changing the way that I practice medicine? Maybe I'm only seeing a couple of patients now, and in the future I'll be expanding to a fully online practice. And that just ties back into your desired outcomes. So I'm going to hand it over to Harrison, and he's going to talk about things to ask your vendor. These are questions that an exercise that we go through with all of our vendors that we onboard. So Harrison, take it away.
Sure, sure. So, and this is a conversation that I've had more times than I can count, I think. But you know, being on the other side of it, I do know at this point that there are definitely a few questions that you need to ask whoever your vendor is going to be as you go through that selection. You know, first, security, obviously, that is a checkbox that is absolutely necessary and important. So, do they provide a business associate agreement? If they don't, then you should walk away right then and there. They don't have, really, frankly, any business providing a telemedicine service for you if they don't supply that. So make sure that that's on the table. Next question is, you know, maybe digging a little bit deeper there. How does that vendor guarantee HIPAA compliance? You know, for instance, with WeCounsel, we not only sign BAs with our clients, but also for all of our vendors. We do a third-party audit each year to make sure that we are in compliance. We have developed and maintained a comprehensive set of policies and procedures to protect data and anything that's generated off of the website. And then finally, we also make sure we encrypt everything. We have certain encryption standards for not only the data but the video feed itself. So going into a conversation there, at least for a little bit, is definitely warranted. The next step is always request a thorough demo of the software, and that can take the place of take the form of rather a one-on-one demo and consultation, or perhaps even just a 30-day free trial like we offer. That is, you know, an all-you-can-eat, all-you-can-try demo of the software on your own time, and then call in as needed. I think maybe one of the biggest questions to ask is the software supported? And by that, that can also take on many different forms. By supported, I mean, is that software periodically updated and improved upon? So is there a development team that is constantly fixing, improving, adding new features that you are going to in turn benefit from in the longer term? Is the software supported from a technical perspective? So am I going to receive technical support, and if so, in what time frames and hours? You know, what is the onboarding process look like, and do my partners or providers and admins receive training? Do we have an account manager that we can reach out to at any point? You know, what happens if there's a technical issue? Is there resources within the software? Is there email, call support, what have you? So make sure you're really well versed in that. And then, you know, lastly, and this is something that is for any software really, but check your references. You know, they should have at least a couple of references that they can point you towards that, you know, will be able to highlight their experience with the company and put you at ease in that respect. And then I guess outside of that, the one last thing I would say is make sure that you understand the full breadth of the software offering. Sometimes, you know, if the question doesn't get asked, some things could be left on the table. So making sure that you understand the complete functionality and how that could tie in to your workflow, especially as you grow and your needs change over time, could affect your decision. So
yeah, once you've kind of gone through this exercise with each of your providers or software providers that you are interested in, you're going to have a list of people to choose from, and ultimately you have to choose one. And At that point, we really recommend that you establish a timeline. Once you've gone through the vetting process, establishing a timeline is going to help you adhere to your plan and give you a good outline of what it is to expect. A good software provider will walk you through the onboarding process, key thresholds and benchmarks to see along the way. And they'll help you understand generally what to expect during your experience. And we typically find that this process that you see here on the screen works, and this is what we generally recommend as far as the stages go, but it's going to be different for everyone. So you may take just a few minutes to go through this entire vetting process and actually start your first session, but others will take a couple of months, and maybe that depends on your size of your practice or whether or not you're an organization or an individual provider. It's a timeline is going to look different for everyone, but it's just a good practice to get into. Harrison, do you have any tips about using a timeline or what things to expect during the onboarding and implementation process for providers?
Yeah, I would say, having a timeline for a project is not a novel idea, but I do think it is a best practice that should be applied to a telemedicine initiative. And so from the point that the software is chosen, so if someone, decides to come on board with WeCounsel, we will present them with a very detailed timeline, one that we will recommend. And we'll go into a sprint cycle with them, typically taking about 2 weeks, but that does vary from client to client what their timelines and needs are. But going through this sequential step-by-step process is a way for us to hold our clients accountable as well, making sure that they in turn hold themselves accountable to these steps and taking the project seriously and keeping the momentum. You have expectations for us, well, we have them for you. If you want to be successful, there's a certain formula that we find works. And so, we do our best to provide a little bit of that structure within the confines of your reality and what makes sense for you as a client. So that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So at this point, we're almost halfway through the process. We've examined our desired outcomes and devised a strategy, and now it's time to implement our strategy, and that includes the onboarding process with your software provider, promotions and marketing, and client education. In my experience in customer success, a good telemedicine software is going to provide you with a few things: training, customer success, technical support, all of these things that are going to make sure that you're successful. And you should ask your vendor or provider, whoever you go with, you should ask them if they provide these things to you, especially test calls and resources. Your clients and you are going to need to know that when you're on a call that someone's going to be there for you to troubleshoot any issues that may arise. And you want to be set up for success prior to your first call. So that includes training and having a dedicated account manager. So you want to make sure that these are things that you're getting out of your provider, and find out those things beforehand. Also, to go hand in hand with this training is also promotion and marketing. These things are what we find help our providers get traction with clients. Perhaps you're only going to be seeing 1 or 2 of your existing clients, and maybe in that case a brochure is going to work for you to make your clients aware that you're now offering telemedicine services. But if you're trying to reach a broader audience, or you'd like to expand your services or client base, then maybe a directory or social media is going to work best for you. You'll want to ask your vendor, are there tools in the software that will help you promote your practice online? And those are just things to consider. And also, you'll have to remember that your clients may not know what telemedicine is. And so making them aware of your new service offering and educating them about what it is that you're doing is going to be a really huge promotion for you. And so that brings us into the client education piece. You're going to have to talk to them about system and technological requirements, what services you're actually making available to them online, and what resources are going to be available to them through the software provider that you've chosen. That's something that's really important, and I think we find really helps our providers is that we do provide client education as well as provider education. And so it's really important for you to ask your software provider if that's something that they do. Obviously, it'd be very time consuming for you as a provider to educate and test call every single client prior to their call. So you want to make sure that that's a resource available to you. And then moving on, after you've gone through this phase, you're going to get into your execution, which is really simple. It's just 2 steps. You're going to prepare for your first call, and you're going to make your first call and your subsequent calls. And preparing for your first call is really very important. There are some things to consider. You're going to want to make sure that you have the right equipment, and that means at this point you should know what hardware is compatible with the software that you've chosen. You'll want to know if phones and tablets, which your clients may want to use to connect with you, are compatible, and if so, are there plugins or software that need to be downloaded? Do you need to make sure that your browser and your computer are updated? Your operating system should be up to date as well, and also make sure that your internet speeds are good. You're also going to want to conduct multiple test calls. And in this step of the process, I really find that providers are successful when they solicit the help of their friends and family to conduct these test calls or just try the software out in general. And also, you'll want to create a client account or pretend to be a client of yours so that you can see what the process is going to look like for your client and know what to communicate with them. Another thing you can do, and your software provider should give you this information, is review best practices for video conferencing. So wearing solid colors so you don't take up too much bandwidth, and making sure that you're in a well-lit area. Also, you'll want to make sure that you're in a safe place with little to no distractions and good sound quality. Wearing headphones will help improve your sound quality. And then once you've done all this for yourself, you're going to communicate all of that information to your clients, and they should be doing the same thing. And then prior to your first call, you're going to want to instruct them to show up early. And finally, they'll want to conduct a test call as well. Harrison, is there anything that you find works best for providers and clients during that first call preparation?
You know, I would say that, generally we want to make sure that providers take that first call seriously for each client. So if it's the first call for each individual client, you want to make sure you take care to make sure that that's successful, because that's really yours and in most cases their first interaction with telemedicine, and you want it to be a good experience, and you want their buy-in just as much as you have your own buy-in for this technology. And taking it seriously means doing all of the diligence beforehand, setting yourself up for success, and that means making sure that your network is good, making sure that the software is installed and works properly, however that or whatever that means, and definitely showing up early for the first call and instructing your client to do so as well. The last thing you or they want to do is to spend therapy time trying to get that first call launched. And so, that's just something that you need to be aware of, and I think it's something that's an easy win, and don't underestimate it. So just making sure you stay on top of that is the real takeaway here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you finally get to do the fun part, which is make your first call, and it's really the beginning on the road to success in telemedicine, and that first call is going to set the tone for the rest of your telemedicine experience. So make sure that you get prepared for it. Mm-hmm. And then finally, after you've gone through that entire process, your assessment, planning, implementation, you've executed, you've done a few calls, what you're going to do is go back and evaluate your progress and repeat the process again. And when you're evaluating your process, you're going to want to collect some client feedback. What are your clients saying is easy for them, great, difficult, and communicate that information to your software provider. They like your feedback, and they want to get your feedback as well. You also take a look and see if your strategy is helping you to achieve your desired outcomes. You're always going to want to tie it back to that beginning exercise that you did and asking yourself what telemedicine can do for you and what you want it to help you achieve. And finally, take a look at your ROI percentage and ask yourself if you're leveraging the software in a way that maximizes your return. So Harrison, what do you think is a good practice for examining ROI after?
Well, and I'll touch on that, but one thing I definitely want to do is give an example of, an actual real life provider that, did this evaluation process. This may be, kind of seem like a throwaway step, but it's really not. And sometimes telemedicine can be implemented in multiple steps over time. And so I'm thinking of one provider specifically whose name I won't mention, but she started out just in our preferred plan, trying it out with a few clients, and had that initial success over the first couple of months, and she did meet that initial goal, but then in circling back to evaluate that, she actually set another benchmark for herself, and she said, well, instead of 3 clients, I want to have every one of my clients have every other session online, and I want to do more to promote my practice online, and I want this to be more integrated with my existing website. So we tackled that with her together, said, okay, well, we can use this, and this tool to tie your social media accounts with your WeCounsel account and embed it into your website, and that way your patients can come straight to your website and log in or request a session from you. That is increasing her adoption today in telemedicine utilization throughout her client base. So once again, a stage 2 success point for her, and I'm sure that we're going to go through another evaluation period as she continues to optimize her telemedicine experience for her and for her clients. So it's just continuous improvement. How can I maximize the software so that it maximizes my return? So you guys, we really encourage you to think about that. We're really good at that. We can help you and brainstorm in that respect. That's our job too. A good software vendor is not just a vendor, it's a partner. So in every respect, your success is our success, and if we can help facilitate that for you, then we've done our job. And the software and its functionality is really just a baseline in that respect.
Yeah, and I do think that it's important to have someone that's going to go through that entire process with you and not just leave off after that implementation period is over with. Because when you go back to repeat this process, this continuous improvement model is really going to be how you continuously improve upon your offerings and create value for your clients and your partners. So moving into the question period today, we're going to go through that in just a moment, but we also want to let you know about, Harrison would like to talk to you about an upcoming webinar that we have after this.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you guys all for participating today. We want to reserve at least we got about 10 minutes left for questions, and briefly, the next webinar in our series is going to be focused on how to market your practice online and market your online practice. And so we're actually inviting a panel of very renowned practice consultants that have an emphasis in digital marketing and practice promotion to come on and tell us about their best practices and tips that they've learned over the years that's driven their success. That's going to be on October 26th, same time at 12 p.m. Eastern, I believe. We'll send out information around that particular event, which we're very excited about. So stay tuned for that. And I think we'd like to wrap it up. If you guys want to ask a few questions, there's a chat tool where you can post your question in the control panel for this GoToWebinar, and so we're happy to answer any questions at this point.
Yeah, if you just focus your attention down there in your GoToWebinar control panel, there's a question section. You can type a question in there. We're happy to answer them. Also want to point out that just beneath that is a handout section. We put together a little one-pager for you that has a synopsis of all of the information that we discussed today. So we've got some questions coming through. One person says, how about in the UK? We do have partners in the UK currently, and it is possible to join WeCounsel. Harrison, why don't you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we have specific server space in the UK. We have several clients that are live there today. So that's definitely an option if that's where you're based. Let's see.
So someone else asked, will you have the PowerPoint available for download? We will. If you want it now, you can respond to the email that you got from us advertising the webinar, and I'm happy to email it to you after we've concluded today's presentation. Moving on, do you have clients that use telemedicine in Oklahoma, and what payer sources were they billing? Harrison, are you familiar with any clients in Oklahoma so far?
I think that's probably going to be a little bit more of a detailed question that we'll have to do some diligence on for you, and we would be happy to set up a time afterwards to do a one-on-one consultation with you. In fact, in the handout, you'll see that it kind of summarizes what we went through today and gives you the opportunity to schedule a free one-on-one consultation with a WeCounsel expert, a telemedicine expert here in-house. So if that's of interest, please see the handout that is provided for you.
Yeah, there's a link on that handout. Just click the link and it will allow you to schedule a consultation with us. You'll just put your name and email address in, put it on our calendar, and someone will contact you about that. We've got another question coming through about integration with EHR. Some telemedicine providers do integrate with EHR. We actually have EMR features within our software. So we provide robust documentation, secure messaging, doc sharing, note-taking features already within our software. Harrison, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's, again, it goes back to what do you want telemedicine to solve for, so we're going to be coming out with plans in the very near future that focus around that. Maybe you just need scheduling video, there's a plan for that. Maybe you want a full online office through WeCounsel, there's a plan for that. So it really just depends on what your needs are. Some folks use this for one, two, or all the features. It's up to you.
We've got some questions coming through about specific, how much do you charge, or integration with our website or with your website. We're happy to answer all those questions on an individual basis. There's no one shoe or one glove fits everybody solution in telemedicine, and we really like to have individual conversations with you to find out what you need and what your desired outcomes are. So if you'd like a consultation, just give us, make that request on the one pager, or you can email me from that invitation that you received, and we're happy to get that set up and address each and every single one of your questions individually when it comes to that. I've got someone here asking, is it possible to develop an application where therapists and clients can connect directly and easily from a phone or tablet? And I would ask, perhaps our software does allow you to directly connect from a phone or tablet, basically anywhere that you can access an internet browser. So I think that kind of answers that question if it didn't let us know.
So I mean, I know a few of you folks are representing businesses, and often that comes with different workflows, needs, and business models. So on the enterprise side of the conversation, we do support different types of business models, whether it's business to consumer in the home, or you're creating a marketplace. And you need to be able to provide that service across different hardwares, iPhones, tablets, PCs. Those are conversations that I particularly am very well versed at, and we create custom solutions for telemedicine service providers. So happy to have that conversation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I got another question here about billing across state lines. As we said before, there's a good general rule of thumb that you should be licensed in the states that you're billing in and practicing telemedicine in, and you can be licensed in multiple states. So that's not barring you from practicing in multiple states. And as I said before, a lot of states will make expedited application requests specifically for telemedicine providers. So if you have more specific information or requests for information about reimbursement, like we said, we do provide that resource. We can get you a one-page kind of synopsis of the regulatory and reimbursement environment in your state. All you have to do is contact us. Got some more questions here about wanting to integrate. Please reach out to us for a consultation. If you're interested in WeCounsel, we're happy to speak to each and every one of you.
So I see one question that says, can I live out of the country and use telemedicine for U.S. clients? The answer is yes. That's not regulated. Again, if you're licensed in that state, that's going to be fine. We actually have one provider that moved with her husband to Paris for a year for work-related purposes, and she wanted to continue meeting with clients in her practice, in her existing practice, and she used WeCounsel to do that. So very much, that is a very viable use case.
Yeah, I have another person here asking if most patients want to use an iPad or a laptop or desktop. And in my experience, it's a mixture. Obviously, the phone is what we take with us everywhere we go. So I feel like clients are using that pretty often, but we do have clients that are using laptops as well. It's a mixture. The regulatory info that we've compiled is available upon request. If you have a request, please reach out to us. The number is 888-958-2885. You can also email success@wecounsel.com, or you can respond by requesting that one-on-one consultation by clicking the link in the one-pager.
Here's a question from Joseph Johnston talking about how to advertise and to market statewide in an affordable way. And I think that that is something that's a question we get asked all the time, and you know, from providers specifically, how do I market this? And we're actually going to be rolling out a new subset of services around that specifically, and this upcoming webinar in October on the 26th is geared specifically around that. So we encourage all of you, if you have marketing questions, if you want to figure out how you can bolster your online presence and how that ties into WeCounsel and the tools we offer, I strongly recommend you attend that webinar, and we're going to be offering a specific plan for providers that are wanting those services.
So Mark has asked, how can you get a certificate of participation? That's a great question. All you have to do is email me at abbyg@wecounsel.com, and I'm happy to provide you with that. Another question is, does Medicare provide telemedicine? So Medicare does reimburse in certain cases for telemedicine. Unfortunately, it's a smaller subset of reimbursement for chronic care management, end-stage renal disease, long-term care, checkups. So it's really, I can provide you information on that as well. We have a one-pager about that also, but it's a little bit more exclusive as far as what Medicare will reimburse.
So one more question. The parities and regulations per state only matter if you are billing insurance. As far as reimbursement is concerned, that is correct. So if you're billing out of pocket, you don't have to worry about all of those nuances, but you do want to make sure that you're abiding by you know, your state board's policy towards telemedicine, whatever that may be. They may recommend certain resources to help you, like distance counseling certification or what have you.
So another person has a question about a patient that lives in one state because to see them in another state, wherever the patient is typically is where the billing occurs, so to speak. So you'll want to check, of course, with your state regulatory bodies. But typically, if the person is in the state at the time of service, then you can bill for that. Thank you so much for all of those who joined us today. We have some comments on here that are just saying that you appreciate it, and we really appreciate you coming.
I think I had one last question here from Joan Saxton. We work with all practice sizes, from individuals to medium and large practices with varying needs. In fact, we are about to announce some new service and subscription offerings, some that allow individual or 1 and 2 provider groups to leverage the full breadth of our software, including administrative capabilities, and allow you to grow over time as opposed to jumping straight into an enterprise package that may be a little bit overpriced for you. So we're really excited to announce that. That's going to be part of our next webinar, again on October 26th. So we will provide you with some more information on that. If you're an existing WeCounsel provider, you'll be notified this week with some of the changes that are upcoming, which we're very, very much excited about and excited to share with you.
Yeah, I just want to take another moment to thank everyone for joining us today. We are going to be, having multiple webinars this fall, and we're going to have some great guests joining us for those webinars. We're going to be covering topics from best practices in telemedicine to reimbursement strategy and everything in between, and really get more in depth about vetting a telemedicine software. We hope to provide these to all of you for free, and we want to be a resource to you moving forward. Harrison, did you have anything to add?
Just one last shout out. There is a handout available that summarizes some of the key tips that we offered today, and a link where you can schedule your free consultation with WeCounsel. And Abby, I think we have a final questionnaire just to get your take on how we did today and where we can improve.
Yeah, as we end this presentation here, a survey is going to pop up on your screen automatically. It'd be really helpful to us if you could take just a couple of moments to answer. It's only 3 questions, really quick. But again, thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you. Hope to see you next time. Stay tuned for further information about future webinars.
Thank you, everyone.